Chapter 1. Karma. Essentially, I embody chaos in its purest form. People have their own conceptions of the devil, but I surpass them all. I am everything they fear and more. I thrive on being more wicked than any devil known to mankind. I have existed for longer than I can remember, wreaking havoc on everything, living or dead, and instigating evolution through my chaotic nature. However, I am not alone. You might assume that wherever there is chaos, there must be order. But it goes beyond that. There are more than just two of us primordial beings responsible for governing the cosmos. Whether there is a higher power like the mortals' so-called God remains a mystery to my siblings and me. If such a being exists, we are likely just his agents. But since the Big Bang, a mere squabble between me and my older sister, we have been each other's only companions. You probably know her well, as most mortals do. She is the relentless, unforgettable bitch, Karma. I had hoped to bring about her destruction, but my attempt backfired, resulting in a blast so cataclysmic that it ignited the start of creation itself. It's what happens when you mess with karma, I suppose. I was the only one among my siblings crazy enough to try. You might think that experience would scare me into submission or make me loyal to her, like everyone else. But I am not so easily subdued. I continue to strive to overcome her, while she never fails to give me a taste of my own medicine. Every disagreement between us has led to the creation of new universes, each met with devastating consequences and even their own destruction. We have lost count of these cataclysmic casualties along our tumultuous journey. As a result of my impulsive behavior, both my siblings and I were left to face not just the initial universe we had created through chaos, but an unending series of parallel universes known as the multiverse as well. Despite this, I still refused to submit and become subservient. I remained as chaotic as ever. However, that all changed after a disagreement with my older brother, Luck. He was always so arrogant, manipulating his way out of his responsibilities and leaving me and my obsessive twin to bear the burden of maintaining the delicate balance of existence. Luck had always been my favorite sibling. He often stood by my side, rarely aiding order in his mission to alleviate human suffering. This hindered order from achieving the perfect equilibrium between chaos and order, in accordance with my vow to surpass my twin brother and maintain control. I always strived to be better, stronger, and in control. Unfortunately, my siblings never truly appreciated or acknowledged my contributions. Just like the other primordials, I had my preferred universes. These were the places where the inhabitants had endured the most suffering under my chaotic influence. So, if you happen to find yourself in a world facing constant challenges, chances are you're in the chaosverse. Life there is a real struggle, but let me assure you, it's infinitely more exhilarating than the Luckiverse, Orderverse, or even the Karmverse. Those places were always about finding the perfect balance and living happily ever after. I had been attempting to convince the others to inject some chaos into their universes, but none of them ever took me seriously. One day, as Luck was boasting about his recent accomplishment of creating a flawless life story for a high school student in some twisted world, devoid of any conflicts, I grew bored. It was then that I decided to prove my point since they didn't seem to take my word for it. I wanted to awaken the chaos in all of them because, deep down, we were all similar in many ways. We could even take on each other's roles if we wished, but personal preferences prevented us from doing so. By disrupting luck's dull attempt at a perfect story, I unknowingly landed myself in a far greater mess than I could handle. Perhaps I had been too carried away, thinking that I could tease our older sister and easily recover from the minor injuries sustained. I hadn't fully considered the extent of Luck's abilities until I entered his own corner of the multiverse to tamper with the world where his new story belonged. My goal was to inject a touch of chaos and save its inhabitants from yet another miserable existence. In a way, you could say I succeeded in my little venture, but my triumph was short-lived. Luck discovered a small glitch in his luck-filled reality and began investigating, which led him straight to me at the final stage of my plan. I had made the protagonist's life a living nightmare since his childhood. I shaped him into a disturbed orphan, struggling to distinguish between reality and his dreams. I became a constant voice in his head, craving chaos and mischief. He fought tirelessly to regain control of his life. But he could never fully succeed. That is, until my older brother intervened. At the critical moment when I was about to plunge his world into damnation. Orchestrating a series of catastrophic events and bringing a twisted fictional scientist to life to create new supernatural beings meant to bring the world to its knees, Luck stepped in. He swiftly removed me from the protagonist's body, foiling my wicked plans. In a sudden twist, Luck changed my role in the story to become a plot device that would inspire a perfect and happy ending. It was a harsh realization for me, but it came too late. Once I entered the confines of his reality, I became completely at Luck's mercy. It was undeniably the biggest mistake of my life. I not only failed to achieve what I had set out to do, but my wrathful brother sentenced me to his wretched version of reality. For countless eons, I would be nothing more than a tool to manipulate and influence happy endings in his miserable stories. Luck took the form of a 30-year-old, dressed in blue, for our inevitable confrontation. He explained that his actions were not only to teach me a lesson for crossing him, but also to demonstrate the beauty of an existence devoid of chaos. It made me wonder if he was any better than the inhabitants of his pitiful world. How could there be growth without chaos? I believed that chaos was essential to the very essence of evolution itself. Without me, reality would lose all its flavors. Progress and advancement would never occur in a world where chaos was absent. I repeatedly reached out to my siblings, desperately seeking their intervention in my situation. Their responses, however, were cold and indifferent, which was understandable considering all the trouble I had caused them. Still, I never gave up trying to break free. I made countless attempts to leap from one universe to another within the vast expanse of the Luckiverse. But with each attempt, I only found myself in a world even more pathetic than the one I had left behind. Being myself had always consumed me since the beginning of time, but a moment in Luck's world made me reflect on the life choices that had led me to this day and filled me with regret. I found myself trapped in a never-ending loop, exiting one unbearable world only to be thrust into another. It seemed like there was no escape, but I was never one to give up easily. Yet, as I slowed down to muster my strength and reach out to my two other siblings, I realized how weak I had become. My chaotic abilities were diminishing by the minute, and I could only summon enough power for one final attempt to contact the eldest of the primordial deities. But she, too, proved to be apathetic to my suffering. Taking an eternity to appear on one of the towering mountains in the world where I was stranded. Unlike the 1,000 others I had visited, this world was much less orderly, giving its inhabitants a sliver of hope for growth. Karma, dressed in her signature black and white outfit symbolizing the balance between good and evil, stood before me in the apparition of a magnificent middle-aged mortal woman, her hair graying in certain areas. "Please, I beg you," I pleaded, gripping her hand tightly to convey the depths of my desperation. "You can continue to control me for all eternity, but just set me free. Get me out of here." She reached out, her touch gently pushing strands of my long, dark hair behind my ear as she implored me to endure this suffering with patience. "Luck is simply trying to make a point." "What kind of point is that?" I interrupted angrily, pulling away from her in frustration. "And how does keeping me as a prisoner in his sanction diminish my chaotic nature in any way?" "You will understand," she replied, her smile filled with promises. "You have always been focused on inciting evolution, but you have never considered evolving yourself. Each of us knows the importance of balancing the elements that define us, except for you, chaos. You never know when to stop. You always push boundaries." I rolled my eyes at her, unable to hold back my irritation. "Enough with the act, Karma. It's clear that you are relieved to see me trapped in this hellish existence. It gives you, the stagnant fools, more opportunities to revolve around your helpless agenda of peace and a so-called perfect balance." "It's all right to find a balance, chaos," she responded in the same calm tone that was starting to grate on my nerves. "Life cannot always be spontaneous and uncalculated. You possess an intellect that you rarely utilize. Imagine the possibilities if you were to focus your thoughts on creating something vast and extraordinary, like your twin is doing now." She finished with a sly grin that indicated whatever order was up to might not be in my favor. "Please, just tell me," I sighed, fighting to keep my emotions in check. "What is he doing?" "Oh, I can't disclose that," she said nonchalantly, shrugging her shoulders. "But I can assure you that if you resist luck and prolong your stay in the mortal realm, it may be too late to reclaim your position among us." "Yeah, like anyone could replace me," I scoffed, disbelief evident on my face as I observed the reassuring expression on Karma's face. "Wait, is he trying to take my place?" I asked, struggling to suppress a laugh at the absurdity of the thought. "Order is more of the goody-two-shoes type. He couldn't handle my role if his life depended on it. He knows nothing about being a force of destruction. That's my specialty. That's my purpose. It's the only thing I'm good at." Frustration tinged my voice as I finished speaking. How can someone so kind and human step into such a chaotic role? I muttered hopelessly, more to myself than to my self-assured companion. "The reason you find this hard to believe is because you haven't found your balance yet," she condescended once again. "The rest of us have embraced both our light and dark sides, chaos and order. Don't be surprised if order excels at being chaos more than you ever could." The determination in her voice sent a shiver down my spine, forcing me into instant submission as I pleaded to be freed from the confines of the Luckiverse. I would lose myself completely in this serenity if I were trapped here for eternity. Kindness and compassion simply aren't in my nature. It's not my domain. I am chaos for a reason. Chaos can only be synonymous with evil. Mortals see me as a devil, responsible for their sins and downfall. Because you are, karma interjected impatiently. You are responsible for a great deal of pain and suffering. And while I wish I could help, I can't shield you from the consequences of your actions. You are essentially reaping what you have sown. I am the embodiment of evil, karma. I'm meant to be bad, not good. This goes against every law of nature. I shouted, my anger consuming me. We are nature. And we have the power to dictate your fate since you lack the ability to make a choice for yourself, she snapped back. So face the consequences of your actions, chaos. No one is exempt from their karma. Not even you. I was never meant for this. I am the least humane among us, I persisted. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if the devil chose to be kind for once? What if you were capable of being just as good as you are evil? Wouldn't that create a perfect balance? Her voice faded as her image merged with the golden hues of the setting sun. Well, if you are already planning on replacing me, then you might as well tell me how long I'm stuck here. I yelled at her disappearing figure. You won't be here forever, her faint voice echoed in the distance. I will ensure that you are removed from the luckiverse as soon as you find your balance. How long it takes depends entirely on you and the choices you make from now on. Her image dissolved into the warm sunlight, penetrating my fragile human form atop the highest mountain in a small African city called Bahiti. It was the most wretched I had ever felt in my existence, perhaps the only time I truly experienced misery. My life had been exhilarating and fulfilling before I foolishly intervened in another one of luck's feeble attempts at a happy ending. If only I had exercised some restraint and stayed away from the territories of other primordials, as I had done since the beginning of time. None of this would have happened if I had just stayed in my own domain. Realizing the profound impact this desolate realm was having on me, I extended a pair of raven wings from my back. Long black horns protruding from my scalp as I took to the air, leaving the woodland behind and returning to civilization. It was incredibly disheartening that I couldn't maintain flight long enough to reach the most magnificent building in town, where I intended to eliminate its owner and seize control of their territory. Startled pedestrians watched as I descended, unable to react to the sight of a mere mortal man plummeting from a great height without a parachute. The impact of my landing likely resulted in a few broken bones and dislocated joints. My left and right knees, as well as my left elbow, were out of place. Thankfully, my rapid healing abilities lessened the pain. I lay in the middle of the road for only 5 minutes before hearing the quiet cracking sounds of my bones realigning. As I rose to my feet, the sound of approaching police sirens filled the air. Onlookers were astonished by my survival, their gasps echoing through the crowd. I flashed a smile at the most bewildered observer, a college student with long, dark braids and pitch-black eyes reminiscent of the vast expanse of space and time in the primordial realm. It brought me a sense of familiarity, though I couldn't let it distract me from the gravity of my current situation. It was evident that I was rapidly losing my powers, and there was a strong likelihood of becoming fully mortal before I could achieve my goal of conquering this small world for myself. How are you still walking? I heard the girl with the haunting, pitch-black eyes inquire as I made my way through the murmuring crowd, cautiously avoiding eye contact. Her gaze felt overwhelming, as though it wanted to consume me. From the reactions of the onlookers, it was clear that magic was not something they were accustomed to in this realm. This was quite unsettling, considering that magic was the only force of nature capable of outwitting a primordial's powers. Our theory was that we were all born of magic, also known as the force of creation. It bestowed upon all living beings the wondrous ability to procreate. However, only a select few enlightened mortals possessed the capacity to harness this magic for personal purposes. It was an unrestricted force of nature, one without limits. It could emanate from a mere mortal, yet possess the capability to annihilate a primordial. We carefully controlled human knowledge of its existence to prevent our catastrophic downfall. Although we can't die in the traditional sense, it would be a painstaking process to regenerate ourselves from scratch over the course of the next 1,000 eons. Therefore, we discourage humans from exploring its full potential. Luck had a serendipitous touch in stranding me in a universe oblivious to the wonders of magic. If only a chosen star child could tap into their hidden potential, they could break the cruel grip of luck that had befallen me. However, it was premature to jump to such conclusions. In a world where luck reigns supreme, there was a chance that I might stumble upon someone with extraordinary qualities. It could be someone as random as the girl with mesmerizing black eyes or any unsuspecting mortal, unaware of their innate magical abilities. But for now, I needed a safe haven, a place to rest and replenish my strength.